Hello friends, bienvenidos. My name is Jen, aka Jen Calotero on social media, your local witchy friend and intuitive guide through the occult. As always, my lovely husband and co-host is David, aka Premier Pulls on social media.
Hello everyone. Today, Jen explains numerology.
Welcome to the show. Grab a chair, make yourself at home. Jen's got stories to share. You'll never feel alone.
Happy New Year to everyone.
I know. Happy 2024. This is our very first episode of the year. So if you're joining us for the first time, thank you very much. If you are a continuous listener, thank you so much for being with us through this journey into the new year.
Yes, I am so excited. I cannot believe if January 1st, 2023, Jen saw everything I did in 2023, I would not believe it. My life just did a complete 180. I never thought I would have a podcast. Public speaking is actually something that I can do okay, especially like at work where I'm getting paid. But personally, like it's so difficult. But with this podcast, it feels so much easier because this is something I am passionate about. So it's been such a wonderful journey. All the support, all the listeners. Right now, we're about at like 600 listens total, which is amazing.
That's incredible, which actually an announcement to all of our listeners. I think we finally reached a milestone within the Spotify podcast program where we can start monetizing in a certain way. So why don't we tell the listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are different ways on Spotify that you can monetize. But right now, one option that has been unlocked to us is monthly listener support. So if you feel called to show your appreciation in terms of an energy exchange involving money, then
I was going to say, it's just money.
It is an energy exchange, I feel. Because, you know, if you want to show your appreciation in the form of currency, then you can donate through Spotify, which I think is a cool feature.
I also want to be one of those, like, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I know a lot of the listener, like, subscriptions and listener donations, all of them say the very cliche, anything that gets donated will go straight into the podcast. I'm not going to say that. I will buy myself like some tea or some drinks. Definitely, we will put some of it back into the podcast itself. But I hate when they say that because, like, nah, like you're dipping into that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect to make a ton of money off of donations, but it's just nice, like. If someone were to donate, then yeah, we could get like a coffee or something. So if you want to show your love that way, that's cool. So my love language is words of affirmation. So I would still continue to appreciate engagement with our content and continuing to let me know how these podcasts make you feel and how you've incorporated your own magic into some of these, conversations we've had.
I like the questions and the interactions, but I will be straight up. I like the money too. I don't like beating around the bush. But anyways, yeah, new year. There is 52 weeks in a year. Is that correct?
Yes, there are 52
There's
weeks
52 weeks. And we have about the next 20 episode ideas already laid out. So I think we're doing really good.
Yeah, we'll definitely have content for a long time. I feel like the realm of the occult and the paranormal is just like you can dive deep into like one particular subject. Like we could make 5 episodes about the moon if we wanted to. Like there's just so much to talk about.
We're definitely going to have an alien part 2, numero dos. And with that said, we'll lead into our segment today on numerology. So why don't you tell us what numerology is, Genesis?
Yeah, so numerology is basically the belief that numbers have spiritual meaning, whether that can tell you about yourself or whether that can predict the future. It has existed as long as math has existed. Some of the earliest forms of numerology, funny enough, come from Pythagoras, which we all think of like the Pythagorean theorem. Yes, it's the same guy. He was great and found out this like geometric formula, but he also believed that numbers had spiritual abilities as well. So I love looking into the past and seeing that all these wonderful people that created advances in math and science were also so spiritual. I feel like I'm the same way, not that I'm necessarily contributing like that much into science and math, but like I like learning about science and taking into consideration science along with the unknown, the occult. So
Yeah, and I think that's really cool, right? Back in the day, a lot of scientists and mathematicians did have to conform to what was at the time basically the ruling class or the ruling government entity, which was religious institutions. So I think if we go back in time, there is a pattern of all these great minds coming together while still holding space for spirituality. Unfortunately, there was some prosecution as well, which is kind of sad. When it comes to all the supernatural and the religiosity of it all, those are some of the things that I think are a bummer, and maybe some of the things that make me become a little more skeptical, right? I think Galileo was persecuted for believing that the Earth was not the geocentric thing of the universe, and now we kind of look back and say, well, that's obvious, but back then it wasn't, right? I think calculus wasn't even invented until after one of the older Ivy League schools had already been well established. So there's obviously progression, and with math being such a fundamental language for human understanding and life, is I think numerology is one of those things where there's going to be definitely a Venn diagram of, this is the realm of reality, logic, math, and then some spirituality, as well as some of the occult stuff.
yeah, definitely. So specifically with Pythagorean, he believed that the basic vibrations 1 through 9 had very specific meanings, and then there are like these master vibrations of double digits of 11 and 22, and then there was also like Asian numerology that I don't know a whole lot about from China, but the big three that we see now are Pythagorean, Kabbalic, and Chaldean. So Kabbalic comes from Hebrew mysticism. It's basically, from my understanding, a part or uses inspiration from the Hebrew alphabet, which has 22 variations, and ties into tarot the most. Tarot has a lot of Cabal inspiration, and that's why we have 22 major arcana cards from 0 to 21. And then Chaldean numerology has closer ties to astrology because it has unique vibrations, or believes that the numbers 1 through 8 are like energetically spiritual, which back when this was more of a thing, closer to like Mesopotamia, they really only knew of like 8 things in the sky, because like Pluto you can't see with your naked eye, for example. So that's why it's numbers 1 through 8. It has closer ties to astrology. The basic thing with numerology, like there are so many definitions and like perspectives to choose from. When you start your path with numerology, you really have to decide like, okay, universe, if you're going to send me specifically a message, this is the dictionary that we're going to abide by, so that we're speaking the same language. This is what I'm going to use moving forward. That's what I did when I started my numerology experience. And the dictionary, if you will, that I use is based off of the tarot, which has ties to Kabbalic numerology. So that's what I use when I receive numbers. That's what I use when I decode numbers for other people. I don't feel like there's a right and a wrong, because whatever dictionary you use for your experience, if you see those numbers, they are meant for you in the way that you understand them.
Interesting. Yeah, I know you and I noticed a little bit of maybe companies or institutions taking advantage of those beliefs when we were on the cruise and playing the slot machines. Remember, there was a machine that was very like Chinese oriented, and it had a lot of 8s not only in the iconography, but also in like the payouts as well as the bets you could make. It was all, some of it was subtle, and I kind of noticed it. And then you pointed out like, oh, I think in Chinese culture, the number 8 is considered very lucky. So maybe as a way to attract players of, certain ethnicities, or I don't want to say prey, but when it comes to casinos, I will use that term, like prey on the belief of certain people.
Yeah, absolutely. Specifically in the Chinese culture, 4 has negative connotations because the number 4 sounds like the word death in Mandarin. I have a minor in Mandarin, but I'm super like embarrassed because my tones are horrible and it's definitely atrophied, but I can tell you that like they sound pretty close.
What is the number 4?
So my tones are horrible. You might not be able to hear a difference, but in pinyin, which is basically like the romanization, like using our letters to pronounce things, it's SU, but with different accents for versus death.
Okay. Interesting.
And then, 8 is prosperous. So a lot of, businesses from China or Taiwan will want to use a lot of 8s. In like Western, we think 7 is lucky, and then also 13 is unlucky. However, some people have certain, what's the word, like connotations or beliefs to certain numbers, just like personally. Like for my cousin, 13 is a very lucky number, and I'm watching Squid Games, the reality show, like where people are actually competing.
Shout out Netflix.
Please sponsor me. Send me your money. I will accept big corporate money, no problem. But anyway, so there was a guy and he was competing in a challenge. I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't watched it, but long story short, he was like, 8 has been my lucky number. I want to go with 8, and like he won a challenge. I've heard of people playing the lotto with like numbers that they really resonate with, and then they end up winning. Like,
so here's my thing with numerology, and I was waiting for this episode because, like all our episodes, I try to understand the mysticism, but at the same time give my opinion or my observation of why maybe this subject in short terms is kind of baloney. It's always very nice package numbers, a 1 through 8, easy double digits, 13. Nobody's ever like, my favorite number is 7,174. Like, nobody does that. And if they do, it's like, well, let me just add them together to get a nice number. Nobody ever says fractions, right? Nobody says my favorite number is 5.27. And funny enough, there are numbers that are not whole, beautiful numbers, bow-tied, that are very significant in our world, like pi, 3.14, not repeating, but, so it's funny how those numbers never get mentioned, or those numbers never have any connotation to anything good or bad, even though there is an infinite amount of numbers between whole numbers. So even between the number 2 and 3, there's an infinite amount of numbers. But you don't think about that. You just think about integers 1 through 9 usually.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you with this a little bit. So think about the alphabet. Is 1 by itself, or sorry, not 1. Whoops. Let me repeat this. I'm going to challenge you a little bit with this. So think of the alphabet. So is A by itself less significant than the word apple, or even the word like alphabet? That's sort of like the argument that I'm understanding. Like, just because someone's favorite word isn't like, I can't remember a long word right now, I'm just gonna say elephant. Like, that if their favorite word is egg, it's like less significant.
Yeah, I'll stick to my point. I think it's arbitrary. I think the numbers 1 through 9 are not any more significant than 5,322,000. It just seems a little too convenient for me. And I get your point, and while it's a good metaphor and it can be interchangeable, I think numbers are a whole different thing than letters, right? Because letters create our language. There's no significant meaning to each individual letter. If you saw, the letter B out there somewhere it would be odd just to see one letter out there, unless it's like a logo or something like that. Usually there's words associated to that. But like we already spoke about, there's certain numbers like the number 8 that stand alone, or the number 7 for luckiness. But there's infinite amount of numbers. There's not an infinite amount of letters. So I do challenge your stance a little bit on that.
Okay, so to mention something back. So with numerology, it's like omens, either like predicting something or learning about yourself, like at birth, maybe what path you're going to take in life. So if each number had a different meaning, like you would just run out of meanings at that point. And also not every...
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why it's so arbitrary, right? I don't think the number 8 is any different, makes any difference. Okay, let me take that back. I don't think the number 8 has any more effect than the number 3 million. It's the same thing.
This is interesting. I just feel like at some point... So I've always stuck with, like, look at the mundane before you look at the paranormal. Like, for example, if someone were to tell me, oh my God, I was doing a spell and then my candle exploded, my first question would be like, was your wick off center? And is that why your candle exploded? I feel the same way about anything really, including numerology, where just because you see like a number over and over, especially like with the time, when I think it's cute, and that's why like I screenshot my phone when I see the time. But do I think it has like a lot of significant meaning? Like, not really, because we look at the clock a lot, and I think that's like more coincidence. But I just feel like if you see it in more random places, it's like, okay, then this is more meant to be.
Got it. Okay. And numerology in a pragmatic sense. So how can people use numerology in their day-to-day life?
Sorry, I just said half of my thought. I was
Sorry.
there was a second half to this. So yes, not everything is a sign, because then nothing would be special, right? You would just run out of like meanings and things like that. And so it's just like if everything from 1 to 1 million was different, that would just be like, I can't conceive. Yeah, that would be so chaotic. Like, I just can't conceive how that's a thing. In the tarot, there are 78 different cards. If you read them upside down, it's 156. That's a lot of meanings, but those 156 different meanings encompass the human experience. But at a certain point, they're finite because they represent like so many things in the human experience. But if you were to go just like further than that, it's just chaotic.
Well, here's what's crazy. Speaking of chaotic, chaos theory, string theory is the theory that there's an infinite number of realities that exist. So it's wild that you say that there's a finite number of meanings, but even through 1 million, if there's a million realities, in theory, there could be a million meanings, right? If you think about string theory. Which is just a trip. I'm not saying anything for a point, but...
That's a trip. I am not high enough for this conversation, to be honest. But anyway, just to counter, I think, or my final piece with this, I think that I like to use my numerology with basic 0 through 9 and then 11. 22, I don't resonate with as much, but...
Taylor Swift does.
And that's good for her, but I'm not Taylor Swift, right? So we come from different backgrounds, different experiences. We process the world differently. Ultimately, numerology is your own spiritual journey. So once you tell the universe, these are the omens I'm going to look out for, and this is what they're going to mean to me, then when you see them, whatever that definition is, that's right for you.
So again, and that's in a pragmatic sense how to use it, right? So
yes.
For example, let's say you said to yourself, you know what, in 2024, the number 9 is calling me. Anytime you see the number 9 out there, you would what? Like, would you have to assign something to the number 9 first? Like, maybe it's a message from somebody who's passed away, and if you see it, then that means that they're trying to reach out to you, or number 9 is prosperity for you. So if you see the number 9 out in the wild, that means that something prosperous is going to happen.
Yeah. You would definitely assign meanings. You wouldn't see it and then assign it a meaning. That's kind of like weird and like.
But I have a question. But what if that is the case? What if, let's say you're out in the world and you see the number 4 out there, like repeating more often than it should. So maybe, like you said, you happen to look down at your clock, it's 4 o'clock, or you wake up in the middle of the night and it's like 4 a.m., or there's like 4 birds on an electric wire. Like, what happens if you start noticing patterns and you haven't assigned it a meaning?
Then, so for my folks that are not super familiar with numerology like me, if they have like, and again, these are all like my beliefs, right? This is what this podcast is about, or my half of the podcast is about. But if someone feels compelled to ask me like, Genesis, I keep seeing 444. Mm-hmm. What does this mean? Yeah. Then the message at the time and the fact that they felt called to ask me means I was meant to deliver a specific message. I am the correct messenger for that moment. But if 3 months later they see 555 and they're called to go to a different person, then that person's 555 message is meant for them at that moment.
So how would you answer somebody who's like, hey, I keep seeing the number 4? What methodology would you use to help determine the message that's trying to be sent?
So again, my definitions are based on the tarot and the more like the Kabbalah numerology. So that's where I get my definitions from. So
would you do like a tarot reading and draw 4 cards?
No, I memorize the major arcana because the major arcana is numbered 0 through 21. So that is how I define numbers for myself and for anyone that reaches out to me.
Oh, okay. Got it. So, okay. That makes sense. Got it. Okay, cool.
Because it's like if someone were to be like, I see 444 and then all of a sudden I have to make up a meaning right then and there like that. I don't know. That doesn't seem symbolic. That's like
kind of arbitrary. Right?
Yeah. That's like if a little kid rolls a dice and they're playing a game and they're like, oh, I rolled a 7. So that means I'm the winner. Like, no, you have to like establish the rules before you play the game.
Got it. Okay. So if somebody did come to you, you would just reference the arcanas.
Yes.
Got it. Cool. It's super interesting. I think it's really nice to assign meaning to things because I think as humans that's what we try to do. We try to find what the meaning of life is, and anything that makes it easier or makes it more simple or even gives us clarity into sometimes the mundane, but sometimes when we're lost, I think that's really helpful. So really cool concept.
Yeah, so I'll just give a couple examples regarding numerology in my personal life. So
and mine too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, always include you, baby. But so the way that you calculate your life path with your birthday is you add up the numbers in your birth month and then the numbers in your birthday and then the numbers in your birth year separately. So if this was a formula, imagine that like there were parentheses between month, day, and then year. So that way you have to like solve all of that first. So I was born in 1995, so I'm going to add 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 5. So 1 plus 9 is 10, and then 10 plus 9 is 19, and 19 plus 5 is 24. And then you add 2 and 4, and you get 6. So the digit for 1995 is going to be 6. That is the year. Anyway, if you add up my birthday altogether, month, day, and year, you end up getting 7. Once you add everything up together. And last year, 2023, 2 plus 2 plus 3 is 7. I will say that has been one of my best years, to be honest. 2023 was fantastic. So the 7 energy and my 7 energy were very vibing. It was a very prosperous year. I didn't know this until like 5 minutes before we started recording. I've never added up your birthday. You're also a 7.
What?
Baby, there are no coincidences. I am telling you.
Well, there's a lot of coincidences, but so this is a 7 household.
This is a 7 household, yes. I have not done Lucy's birthday, but we'll see about that. She's a Leo. We are a 3 Leo household, but anyway. So
all our wall decor is going to start being 7s. Watch.
This is why I'm drawn to 777.
Well, no, that's just called a gambling addiction.
But anyway, yes. So I just thought it was really interesting to notice that. And yeah, sometimes I notice repeating numbers on different things. And then when I reference back to the major arcana, I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Again, that's just the dictionary that I use. So 2024, this year, if you add 2 plus 2 plus 4, that's 8. So the 7, which was
Well,
last...
it's always going to be just one more digit, right?
No, it's not. I can't think of an example right now, but it doesn't always go in order because eventually... Okay, so let's actually do the math on the air. So last year was 7. This year was 8. 2 plus 2 plus 5 for 2025 is 9. Then 2026, 2 plus 2 plus 6 is 1. So you see how
2 plus 2 is 4 plus 6, that's 10.
Yes, but then 1 plus 0 is 1.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So you see how it doesn't go in order. Yeah.
Okay, so repeat. Okay, so this year is 8. So what does that mean for us this year?
So, and then, sorry, actually that would be order. That's not a good example. So let's do 2027. So 7 plus 2 plus 2 is 11. So it would go 8, 9, 1, 11.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so for this year, so the 7.
Wait, wouldn't it be 2?
No, because 11 is a master number. You don't add an 11.
Oh, what's a master number?
So a master number is a number that is a 2-digit number that holds a separate meaning that you don't add. So the significant numbers can be 0, specifically in the way that I do it with the tarot, 0 through 9, and then 11. And then some people like to do 22.
Oh, okay. So 12 through 21 and 10 are not significant major numbers.
No.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm learning.
Yeah. This is like a trip. I feel like this is an episode you kind of have to be like a little bit high to understand. It's just like it's just so abstract.
Maybe not high, but listening a lot closer.
Yeah, it reminds me of movies like Tenet where you like can't blink and then you're like because then you like lose track of what's going on. Yeah.
But getting back on track, so what does 2024 hold for us based on numerology?
Yes. So 2023 was the 7, and the 7 in the tarot is represented by the Chariot, which is very quick transformation. So I don't know about for you, but for me personally, I feel like there were very radical, quick transformations in 2023. So whatever changes you made into your life in 2023, in 2024, which is 8, you now get the Strength card. And so that means that you're going to be solidifying good habits, new realities that you set the stage for in 2023 into 2024. That's how I interpret it.
Okay. So 2023 was groundwork. 2024 is the more methodical, drawn out, start working on what 2023 gave us.
Yes, the Strength card. Yep, the Strength energy.
Nice. I like it. So if 2023 was, you said it, I forgot the word you just said, but it was like a rapid moving year or?
Yes.
Okay. Does that mean 2024 is going to be pretty rapid too, or more kind of deliberate?
Yeah. So 7 energy is the Chariot, which is the 7th card in the major arcana. So because of that energy is for 2023. Yeah. The new energy in 2024 is the Strength energy, which is the 8th card in the major arcana. So this is like a new energy now that we've started the new year.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Any more examples of numerology?
Yeah, some people that are hardcore, like when they're buying a house or renting a place, they will look at the numerology of their house, in which they add all the numbers together.
Like the street address?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to give a street address.
No. Absolutely not. I was going to say we're not going to dox ourselves, but just something interesting that I noticed about our house is that if you add up the numbers, they add up to 4. And 4 is a really good number for just home in general, because you think of like 4 walls, like stability, it's even, it's grounded. And also in the tarot, it's the Emperor energy, which is like you rule your kingdom. So it's a very good number for where you're going to be living if it adds up to 4. Again, this is cultural, because in Chinese culture, 4 is not great. So some people might want to avoid it. But for us, and the way that I understand numerology, my dictionary with the universe, it's fantastic.
Okay, so 4 is what again?
So 4 is, if you look at the tarot, it's the 4th card in the major arcana, which is Emperor. And the Emperor energy is like, I am the king of my kingdom. But then if you look at it from like a practical standpoint, like 4 is a nice even number. You have 4 walls. It's nice and stable. It's nice and sturdy.
It's like grounded.
It's grounded, yes.
Cool. I like that. I don't really live my life through numerology, but I'm going to give you some of my favorite numbers and tell me what, kind of what that means for me. Okay. I like the number 9 for some reason. What does 9 mean?
Number 9. So that's the last number. If you look at like the single digits, I didn't actually know that about you. I didn't know that number 9 was one of your favorite numbers, but in the major arcana in the tarot, it is the Hermit. Oh. So it's very introspective. It's very inward. You are a little bit more reserved with your emotions, I would say. You don't really, you're very independent, so you definitely have like an independent energy about you. I could see that tracks, honestly.
Yeah. And the other number that I've always really liked, and there's an actual reason for this, is the number 7, which we've talked, I think, ad nauseum about the number 7 here. But how do you see the number 7 reflective in my life? And before we get to that, the reason I like the number 7 was, what year is it when you're learning your multiplication? Is it
3rd grade?
3rd grade. So I'm guessing this is a universal experience for everybody who grew up in the U.S. education system. But do you remember you would get those sheets, like your 1 sheets, your 2 sheets, your 3 sheets, and then you would have to fill them out as quick as possible? Mm-hmm. It was like 1 through 12?
Yes.
Well, I used to kill the 7s. Not anymore, but I remember I would, like, for some reason, dominate the 7s, even, like, faster than, like, the easy ones, like 2 or 5. Like 7 was my shit. I would go off on those. So I've always liked the number 7 for some reason. But you knowing me as your life partner for 8 years, how would you say the number 7 kind of reflects with me?
Well, it's your life path number. If you add up your birthday, it gives you 7. So it could remind you of yourself. In Western culture, it's also considered a lucky number. I could see that too. You mentioned multiplication tables, and I just remember I couldn't get my 4s, and my 3rd grade teacher called me a dumbass. So,
so you struggled with the 4s.
I struggled with the 4s, yeah. So that's a spicy memory right there.
I struggled with 8s. 8s were pretty hard for me, and 9s a little bit, but then I always remember the trick of like subtract 1 and then have it add to 9, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that. I don't remember it now, but I didn't know you struggled with 4s.
Yeah, I did. And then also just me personally in my own practice, something I will do if someone is like, I am seeing specifically repeating like 17, like I wouldn't at that point add up like the 1 and the 7 if they're saying like that number repeated and it's within like the numbers of the major arcana, which is 0 through 22. Then at that point I would probably look at like, okay, 17 is significant, but again, this is for me, this is like my own dictionary with the universe, right?
Yeah, interesting. And then like I mentioned before, it's all the, is it irrational numbers? Pi, right? Pi is an irrational number, and that's the only irrational number I know. And I, right?
Oh, yeah, technically. Well, it's a negative number, no? Because it's negative. Doesn't it stand for -1?
Yeah, I think it does. Something like that. So, cool. It'd be really interesting to see if there's any... Well, there are, but to study pi on a numerological level, like where the patterns repeat, how often they repeat. It's an infinite sequence, but I know scientists have looked at it for to see if there's just anything in there.
That's interesting.
And then there's, I think this will be like the fourth time mentioning it, but then there's the Fibonacci sequence too, which is like a pattern out of nature that repeats pretty consistently.
But again, numerology is a divination practice. So either like, how was this person born, or what's going to happen in the future. So pi itself is like not something that would come up, I think, in either of those situations. So I think in this case, pi is a very interesting and significant number, but not spiritually.
In numerology. It might have some spiritual significance somewhere, though.
Yeah, maybe. It's all unique and it's all subjective, and being a witch, being an occultist, whatever you want to call it, is a solo journey, and people understand what's right for them.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, we did get some questions, which I'm really excited about. Did we get any discussion posts for our last one for manifestation?
Yes, we did, actually.
Well, let's read those out, 'cause I feel like we never... Well, we haven't had much, but let's read those. I think we read the ones for our winner on our giveaway, but what did people want to manifest for the new year, or what did they talk about?
Yeah, so Mozzie said that the check thing that Jim Carrey does, she learned from her mom. She told her to make it out to herself and mail it to herself. And she didn't know that Jim Carrey did that too. She did a smaller amount a couple years ago, and it did manifest. So she needs to do it again and put a memo that says void after 180 days. And then Crystal Ann said that she's going to start incorporating cinnamon tea the first of the month starting Monday. And today I had my cinnamon coffee. I made sure not to miss that.
Nice. Yeah, I think I saw your post on Instagram. So really cool. Really cool. We love the discussion posts. I'm really glad we added those. We haven't had too much interaction, but please go ahead and post on those. We love reading them. We love... It kind of gives us an opportunity to get some feedback on our podcast, see what people are liking, see what people are like, what's resonating with y'all out there. So, yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for interacting with those. And let's get into this week's questions. Crystal Ann on Instagram says, what do 3 and 5 typically represent? So we've already given your dictionary. So what do 3 and 5 represent in the major arcanas within tarot?
Yeah, again, I would say it always depends on the situation. Similar to tarot cards, like if I pull something for career versus love versus like self, it might mean something slightly different. But 3 is the Empress and 5 is Hierophant. So Empress is very like feminine, nurturing energy, like queen energy. And then the Hierophant kind of looks like the Pope if you Google it and look at the art. And basically it's a spiritual card, but it can also represent like playing it safe or more like conservative traditional energy. So yeah, that's really interesting. I think it just kind of depends on the context that you see it. If you're seeing like, for example, 333, then based on like the energy of the Empress, maybe you need to connect with like a female energy in your life, or it's your spirit team giving you that like warm, like you've got this, like you're doing so great, we've got your back. If you're seeing 5s, maybe it could mean you're on the right track. It could mean you're making the right calls. It really depends in what context you're seeing it. Like, are you just gravitating to it? Are you seeing it in certain places? But yeah, that's what those typically represent, like for me. And then the next question is _Motov_ on Instagram. Why are they called angel numbers? So again, it's a part of numerology, but in like the 90s, 2000s, there was a philosopher, author person. I'm totally blanking on his name right now, but he basically rebranded numerology into something called angel numbers because it has like a more like Christian twist to it, like something that
make it more palatable for the masses.
Yeah. People, mainly accept the concept of angels in like Western media. So basically like, oh, your angels, because when people think of their spirit team in more like conservative environments, they think of like angels, guardian angels. So they're like, these are angel numbers, angels are speaking to you, versus like a deity or ancestors or something like that.
Okay. And then I think we had one more question.
Yeah, Mercy texted a couple. I don't know if I'll be able to answer all of them, but I will try. I'm pulling it up right now. So, are there certain numbers that hold special significance for you beyond what numerology suggests? I would say I really like 4. It's a very grounding number. Maybe not exactly like emperor energy. Emperor energy is very like authoritarian and masculine. Usually it feels a little more like grounding and nurturing for me, and I just think of like the symmetry of 4. I just really like it, so that's a number that I gravitate to. And then if you discovered a friend had a similar life path number, would you expect to share certain characteristics or experiences? I would think so. Again, I found out that we're both 7s, and it makes sense that we are married.
Yeah.
We're not the same person, obviously. But we have very similar core values, and our love languages are pretty similar. The things that we value and just the way that we love each other is very similar. So I think that makes sense.
And then another number that's kind of started being significant for us was the number 15, I feel. We started, Yeah, we started dating on December 15th. And that first year of our relationship, we try to always do something special on the 15th of every month. We kind of got away from that. And then towards the tail end of 2023, we tried getting back to it. But that's also our anniversary, the 15th. So you have your life path, I have my life path, but together I think our number life path I would say 15, right?
Or just like a number that we both gravitate towards together that like makes me think of you is 15. Which that kind of makes me laugh because in the tarot 15 is the devil. But
I love it.
But the devil, if you look at the artwork, is just another version of the lovers. So
oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
What other questions did Mercy have?
And then Mercy had a question about her own birthday. We'll talk about that later. She wasn't sure how to calculate it. But again, to calculate your own sort of like angel number, life path number, you add the month alone into a single digit, the day alone into a single digit, and then the year alone into a single digit. And then you add those together.
Cool. Speaking of Mercy, she did win our giveaway. Did she reach out to you?
She did. She hasn't had a time to schedule it yet, but she will.
Was she excited?
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. She said she did manifest that win. So there you go.
Nice.
So just so folks know, I actually do have a live event coming up. I will be doing live readings at Abracadabra on the 20th. They are going to be astrology. I will not be doing tarot. But if you want an astrology reading, whether that's a birth chart reading, a 2024 forecast, astrocartography, or a reading with your significant other to see basically like how your charts work together, that's what I will be offering. Or if you just want to come hang out, say hi, stop by my booth, that would be great. Next week's topic is going to be psychic abilities.
Ooh, I'm excited for that. Really quick, just because we're on the topic, what's the date again of your, the 20th?
Yeah, January 20th at Abracadabra from 1 to 6.
And what does the number 20 represent?
If you add it to 2 is balance and partnership. So.
Oh, excellent. So that may be a really good time if you and your partner want to get a reading from Genesis to stop on down and get that for your event.
Yeah, in the tarot, it's the high priestess, which is very like a feminine spiritual leader, a lot of intuition. So it'll be a good day to do some spiritual work.
Awesome. And if people want to get a hold of you, what are your socials?
So my Instagram is Jen Calotarot, GenKaHlotarot, or you can email me tarotwithgenesis@gmail.com.
Excellent. This was a really fun episode. I think we had some good hot takes. I think this was one of the episodes where I was able to kind of get back on my skepticism. A lot of them I've been kind of agreeing with or kind of seeing your point, but this was one I was really excited to be like, okay, this is where I kind of draw the line. So thank you so much for having the conversation with me.
Yes, of course. Anytime. Like I said, we love having these conversations. These are real conversations we have, but now we just have to save them for the podcast. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. Remember, the magic within you makes the world a more beautiful place. Blessed be, and signing off.